What mattered was that every home had a record player, not hidden away in a study or displayed like a piece of furniture, but placed in the living room where life actually happened, next to the couch with the sunken middle cushion, beside the window that caught the afternoon light, within arm's reach of anyone who might need to flip the record or lift the needle back to the beginning of a song that hadn't finished saying what it needed to say. My grandmother's turntable was a walnut-colored Zenith, the kind with a lid that closed but never stayed closed. The record sat in a milk crate beside it, spines facing outward, like books no one ever had time to shelve properly. There was no order. Marvin Gaye leaned against the Temptations. A James Brown single, cracked down the middle, but still playable, was wedged between two Aretha Franklin albums. The corners of the sleeves were bent. Some were stained with coffee. Others had names written on the back in blue ballpoint pen. Evidence of records that traveled between houses and never quite made it home. These weren't a collection. They were a rotation. They were the soundtrack to everything. Greens simmering on the stove on Sundays, card games that ran past midnight, my grandfather's laughter cutting through the bass line of Papa's Got a Brand New Bag. The records were played hard, worn with love. The needle had touched the same groove so many times that some songs began with a faint hiss, a slight delay, an imperfection that became part of the song itself. No one thought about what their things were worth. In 1977, the year my uncle came back from Vietnam, he brought home a copy of Curtis Mayfield's Superfly. He played it every day for months until my grandmother threatened to throw it out the window. The cover, Ron O'Neill in that long leather coat, became a kind of totem in the house, a symbol of the cool my uncle was reaching for. The record became a prayer, a protest, a way of working through things he couldn't say out loud. By the time he stopped playing it, the vinyl had taken on a visible haze, from too many hands, from being the thing you reached for when nothing else worked. That record is worth $400 now. Depending on the pressing, maybe more. But back then, it earned its keep, and that's not something you can put a price on. Now the irony feels heavy. Walk into any record shop in a gentrified neighborhood, and you'll find them behind the counter, sometimes under glass. First pressings of What's Going On, original Stax singles, songs in the key of life, still sealed, untouched, preserved like museum artifacts. The price tags turn your stomach. Hundreds of dollars for records that once sold for $7, and were meant to be played until the grooves turned grey. There's a particular cruelty in watching the music that filled black homes during the hardest years. Records that were once the product of a luxury we could barely afford become objects only accessible to people who can afford not to play them. The records we loved the most were the ones in the worst condition, scratched, warped from sitting too close to a window, sleeves torn from being pulled in and out 1,000 times. We didn't know we were supposed to keep them pristine. We thought we were supposed to use them. My cousin owns a record now that no one is allowed to touch. An original pressing of Prince's Black Album, the withdrawn release that almost never existed. He keeps it sealed in plastic, framed on the wall. It has never been played. He bought it for $800 at an estate sale in Baltimore, watching white collectors bid on a life they were never part of, inside a living room that might have looked a lot like my grandmother's. He doesn't talk about it much, but I know what it represents. The need to reclaim something. The need to protect what was never protected. The need to hold on to what should stay in our hands. Still, I think about my grandmother's milk plate. I think about the way my uncle held a record by its edges when his hands were shaking. I think about how the most valuable thing was never the record itself, but the moment someone decided that Gladys Knight, Al Green, or the Isley Brothers needed to be added to the room. The records that are worth the most now are the ones that were played the least. The ones kept in basements. The ones someone's aunt forgot about. Records that were never background music for anything, but the ones that really mattered. The ones that showed up when we needed them. Got worn out. They got lost. They ended up in thrift store bins, sold for $1 to someone who didn't know what they were holding. Maybe that was the point all along. Value was never in the object itself. It was in the wear. In loving something enough to ruin it. In needing it more than preserving it.